Chances are most companies don't need that full-time financial leadership, or the complexity of the business, the complexity of the balance sheet doesn't really require a CPA or even a full-time CFO. There are great companies out there that provide fractional financial and accounting services at, again, a fraction of the cost. Hey everyone, I'm Dan Gertrudes, and I'm the CEO of GrowthLab. So we get asked all the time, especially during the discovery sales calls, are you a CFO? Are you a CPA? And then ultimately, so what's the difference between a CFO and a CPA? I'll tell you one thing, a CPA can be a CFO, but a CFO that hasn't gone through the rigor and the compliance of becoming a CPA, they can't be a CPA. What are some of the big differences? And by the way, a lot of this is very much brushstroke, especially big shout out to my CPA friends who are very good CFOs. A CPA is essentially somebody who has a designation that can represent you, say, to the IRS, not to say other folks couldn't do that, but they also can do things like reviews or audits, because a lot of our banking partners and investors, they're going to want to see audited financials. And technically, if you are a CFO and you're working for the company, you can't really audit your own numbers. So, brushstroke, let's start there. In my opinion, a CFO is somebody who, one, is agile, okay? Someone who can bridge the gap between the accounting, the financials, yes, the tax, and also the business strategy of the business. Ultimately, that CFO helps orchestrate, do we have enough liquidity to achieve our company goals over the next year, 3 years, 5 years? That CFO also provides financial leadership. Again, I'm not here to say that a CPA couldn't do that, because there are some really good CFOs that are also CPAs, but ultimately that CFO, they're working inside the business, and their number one job, yes, it is to produce accurate financials, to make sure we're on course, that GPS is taking us to where we want to be. But more importantly, that CFO is providing financial leadership for the finance, accounting, tax, and even in some cases, I've seen operations and HR fall under the CFO world. What is a CPA? Or more importantly, what does a CPA do? The CPA tends to work in public accounting firms. They are the outside external financial expert that companies bring to the table. Brushstroke, again, they tend to be the ones that are doing your taxes, especially the review, developing tax strategy. Again, not to say non-CPA designated team members can't do that, but the CPA is that sort of world-class designation that everybody looks to. Now, the CPA tends to be on the outside, looking in, focusing on the taxes, and also on audits and reviews. Now, I'm going to touch on some of the key differentiators, but more importantly, the mindset. And that mindset tends to come from two places: the academics and training and the experience. The CPA does tend to be, well, a little bit more historical looking, whereas a CFO is proactively trying to achieve future plans. Next, we talk about GAAP and we talk about tax returns and audit prep. That is the common outputs for CPAs. So as we kind of think about these mindsets, especially more importantly, as you, the business owner, thinking about who you should be hiring for that all-important position, you really don't want to focus so much on the designation, but you want to focus on the attitude, focusing on the mindset. What you really want is not so much a partner in crime that kind of helps you with the historicals, but you want somebody who's going to help you achieve your plans and get you back on track in case we deviate from those plans. And then the last piece is, which is something we don't always talk about, it's the softer skills in that financial leadership. The CPA can have those softer skills, but people, as you know, we're sort of unique. We have our own DNA. Some of us are introverted, others are a little more extroverted. You want to identify somebody who is going to help rally the team, somebody who's going to be able to develop the plan, and somebody who's going to be able to provide the leadership, especially around historicals and the controllership side. So when do you know when you need a CPA versus needing a CFO? Well, I'm going to start with the latter because that is a little bit more closer to home. I always tell our startups and those small, medium-sized businesses under, say, $2 million in revenue, chances are you probably don't need a CFO. You can probably fill that gap with a great fractional CFO service like plug-in GrowthLab. But when you need to file taxes or you have complicated sort of tax liabilities, tax strategy, you really need a good advisor, and that's where a CPA can definitely jump in and help. If you've got those banking relationships or you have investors, under a certain threshold, you probably don't need audited financial statements. And like I said earlier, the folks inside the business can't be auditing their own numbers. It just doesn't make sense. So you're going to probably need a good CPA relationship to help with those compilations or reviews for those simpler, less intense needs. But once you hit a certain threshold, especially over $2-3 million of money that you've borrowed, you're probably going to start looking at audited financial statements, and that's where a CPA is going to come in. Now, even with that said, you could probably have a CPA at the table and at the same time you have a CFO at the table. If you're a $10 million, say, marketing agency, and you've borrowed $2-3 million in loans from a bank, or you have investors, chances are you're going to need both people at the table with you. Chances are most companies don't need that full-time financial leadership, or the complexity of the business, the complexity of the balance sheet doesn't really require a CPA or even a full-time CFO. There are great companies out there that provide fractional financial and accounting services at, again, a fraction of the cost. Think about it this way. If you're sort of in that transitional phase of your growth and you're starting to feel overwhelmed by your finances, your liquidity needs, cash needs, or even questioning your accounting, chances are it's time to game up and level up the type of capability you need at the table. So you could go out there, hire a CFO, hire a controller, hire an accountant, a financial analyst, and before you know it, you're looking at over $500,000, if not more, in salaries. Not to mention, you're also going to need that public accounting firm off to the side with a CPA who's probably charging anywhere between $200 and $300 an hour for that advice. There are great firms out there like GrowthLab, and what we do is we don't just fractionalize, we compartmentalize both the capability, so what do you really need at the table, and then the capacity. How much of it do you need at the table? In our GL CFO suite, that's what we do. We take the time to scope out your needs, current, and even think about your future needs and how we're going to grow from X amount of services and time, capability and capacity, and being able to grow with you. We'll even help you hire when the time is right. So with that said, thanks again for watching. Reach out, subscribe. I'm on LinkedIn. Check out our website at growthlabfinancial.com.